Ready to stop spinning your wheels and start moving your business forward? You're in the right place. On each episode of Accelerate to Achieve, we'll discuss a crucial step in the journey, offering tips and advice that you can apply immediately within your own company. From financial management to customer success to digital transformation, we'll cover it all while providing leadership lessons from top industry insiders. In just 15 minutes, you'll be inspired to build momentum through action and achieve incredible results. Welcome to Accelerate to Achieve, the podcast that moves you from question to answer and idea to execution. Hello, and welcome back to the latest edition of the Accelerate to Achieve podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Walter, the founder of Parrels Advisory. It can be incredibly enticing at the end of a long journey to look forward to the destination. We've worked so hard to get here. Can't we just skip to the end? There's just some minutia and documentation holding us up. We all know what we're doing and should just get on with it. Some out there may feel documenting our processes falls into this camp, and we'll be diving into that further with our guest today. Layla Pomper's mission is to make work more human. As the founder and owner of ProcessDriven.co, she helps companies streamline their operations through the use of repeatable workflows that scale with software. Now, Layla is a vetted ClickUp consultant and YouTuber supporting growing teams translating their processes into business instruction manuals. Layla, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Ryan.
As we dive into this, I'd really love to hear more from you as to why you think this is just such an important topic, and where do you often feel there's some misconceptions about it?
Well, I think at the end of the day, our processes, we treat them as unimportant because they sound boring at the surface. And generally, things that sound boring tend to be important. But beyond just that surface level analysis, I've always viewed the processes in our business as kind of the internal branding. I think for most service-based businesses, especially, our process is our business. It's the only thing that keeps us from just being a person that does things for money is having a process for doing it. And so I think why I try to keep talking about processes and documenting processes is because I think if we don't ever acknowledge that these things are important and that we need to think about them, most people just find themselves winging it and hoping that things will work out in the end.
No, and I think you've really captured that in a very kind of elegant way. And I think like most things, we often sort of undervalue the stuff that sits there at the foundation. And probably like many things, we don't appreciate necessarily the plumbing and electrical that comes in, but we notice if it's not working too. So sometimes I think that's there, and perhaps we just take those things for advantage.
Mm-hmm.
So from there, though, where do you see people kind of getting confused and maybe making assumptions that just aren't correct, particularly as they're looking at, tools we use versus, the broader systems that they support?
Yeah, I think it's important to separate those two words. Even using words like processes and systems and tools, we all kind of muddy them together because once again, oftentimes we'll just write this off as back office, right? Just behind the scenes. No one needs to worry about it. Just don't look behind the curtain. I think a big point of confusion people have about processes or this space in general is that processes, systems, habits, these things are separate from technology. It's the way you do things, your how, an intentional how, hopefully. That's what the whole process and system space is about. You don't need a technology to make that how come to reality. A habit, in many ways, is a process. It's just not perhaps the most thought out one. And I think when we continually confound processes with technology, it makes us afraid of it. It makes us overwhelmed and not sure where to start. And so we feel like it's more okay to ignore it. Oh, that's something that a big business needs to worry about because I'm a solopreneur. Or I only have, a few $1,000,000 a year. But when we start to view processes as just the way we do things, it becomes very clear how fundamental they are to every type of business, service, product, anything in between. if we start looking at them as just the behaviors we have in our business, I think it's much easier to view them as important and not something that can be put off for a someday task. Whereas right now, which you can probably relate to, as businesses grow, it's usually only during certain growth stages that they start to even think about documentation or the efficiency of processes. And I think that's a huge mistake, a huge miss.
Well, I'm already incredibly thankful for having you on today because you've already given me a great idea. I'm those who know me realize I don't always eat healthy, and probably would say that's not a great eating habit. But now I can just call it my eating process, and it sounds so much better. So I appreciate you giving me that. But more seriously. As we then dive into that concept of the process, right? And I think you've done a great job really drawing edges around it. Do you think it's possible that people, even in the same company, may perceive a process differently?
Oh, that's a loaded question, right? No, I think that's exactly what happens. Um, which is why I think people start to feel this pain when they scale. But just because you perform a certain type of activity, right? A lot of the time when it comes to a habit that's not written down, so a process that's not written down, we're taking certain actions. And people from the outside who are looking over our shoulder, being, quote, trained by just watching you do things, they're getting a piece of the puzzle and observing your activities to do a certain process, right? Like how you answer the mail, how you handle customer service disputes of some kind. When we actually take the time to take a step further and we reflect on the process, we write it down, maybe we make a flow chart or a decision tree, all of a sudden we're not just capturing what actions are being taken. We can take a few moments, and I'm talking 4 or 5 words. It doesn't have to be a lot to explain our intent. Decision trees, particularly, are helpful here. We explain our method of thinking. And when we give that to a person rather than just saying, hey, watch me and do as I do, um, all of a sudden we can hopefully remove some of that misunderstanding because having information in people's heads. I think there's quite a few interviews with Elon Musk where he talks about how, the way people communicate is not an effective way to communicate. A lot is lost in translation. And I think that is no more evident than when you're watching businesses try to, say, delegate for the first time or offload a process to another person.
With that, as we get to say, let's say smaller organizations, though, where they might say, look, it might even be a solo enterprise, one person, they might often say, look, this is just one person doing this. It's in their head. Why do we have to worry about this? Why do we have to consider this if there's just one person? They get it. They know what they need to do. Nobody else is doing it. So why worry about capturing even those 4 to 5 words and the intent?
Well, reason one is most of the time when we're a one person show, our hope is to not always have to be a person show. Or even, God forbid you take a vacation and you want to have someone else cover for you for a few days. For those two instances, it's a pretty low hanging fruit to say, all right, I should probably write some things down. But let's just assume, like you're suggesting here, you never want to grow. This is a passion project or a business that you just want to stay small. The reason to write things down is because of a thing called decision fatigue. So we make tons of decisions throughout our day. And I don't know about you, I'd rather use my mental energy to solve a new problem than to keep resolving the old one. So let's just use the example again of, I think it was customer service support kind of situations. Let's say I'm a one person business, I'm providing customer support. I get these questions about my pricing model, right? And it comes in all the time. Every time that email comes in, I could either sit there and type up a thoughtful response, or I could look at my document that I've created a template for myself. And I copy and paste that template with a few modifications if I need to. One of those methods of just typing it manually every way is the keep it all in my head approach. And every single time that comes in, I write it all out as heartfelt as I possibly can and hope I don't forget something because I'm in a hurry that day. The other method of having, say, a template or prompt or instructions, that other method is allowing me to make a decision once and carry that decision forward into the future without ever having to make it again, unless I need to change my strategy in some way. And even if it's just by yourself, or especially if you're just by yourself, that kind of decision, um, just the decision support, I guess we can call it, that is invaluable because Running a business by yourself is tiring, and anything you can do, especially stuff that is free to do to make it easier, it just kind of seems like a no-brainer.
All right. So I'm going to claim uncle. You've convinced me. Uh, we have to think about this. But isn't it just really a necessary evil then to communicate what needs to be done to everyone, like the checkbox to get done? Like, why is there so much hullabaloo around positioning and internal branding of everything?
I think we could say that about most of business, right? Isn't business just exchanging value for money? Why are there so many business books? Because uh, the value is in the nuance. Because this, once again, I'm going to keep using the word free because it is. It's capturing thinking to make your business better. It doesn't cost anymore. And it's about finding ways within your business itself to recapture value, recapture time, regain efficiency, or just be more thoughtful in the customer experience that you have. Making decisions like, I'm going to create this really robust template for answering this particular customer support ticket. I mean, that's adding value inside my business. And value is something that and while it's value that you don't get to, put on your sales page, it's value that's felt as soon as someone is inside your business, either as a CEO, an employee, a contractor, or a client. Anyone who's in your business is going to feel that atmosphere of just it's like, fairy dust of floating value around the business of these kinds of well thought out things. It's kind of like when you go to a hotel, the curb appeal is what we consider a marketing and sales. But if you go inside that hotel, you log into your room, right? You unlock it, you go in there and it's dusty, it's dirty, it's, been poorly maintained. No one asks, why is it important to maintain the hotel room's quality? Why not just maintain the facade? But yet we question processes in that way as if it doesn't matter because it's inside the business. And I think it's just because we don't know better or we don't take the time to think about it because it's not as sexy.
All right. So there's a lot of folks out there saying, I get it. Okay, I can see why this is important, and I really don't think I've ever done anything about it, and I'm would like to. What advice do you give someone to start tackling this? How do they get moving?
So I like to start at either end. When it comes to a process, I consider there to be three steps. When it comes to writing down, I should say. Processes themselves could have many steps, but it's nice to just get it out of your head on a flow chart. On a piece of paper, it could be a napkin. Should take you less than 10 minutes to write down the steps in a process. That could be making toast. I could get the toast, put it in a toaster, click the toast button. That could be a simple process there. And you might have something just as simple when it comes to your business. The five main things that someone goes through to become a customer of yours. Once you flowchart it, I like to start writing it down, but this does not have to be overwhelming. I usually recommend documentation periods of no more than 20 minutes at a time. And you write the beginning of a process and the end of the process and a big headline as if you were reading a BuzzFeed article, right? The skimmable headlines of what happens in between with just a few words per step. And if you want to go back later and add more, what people typically think of as documentation is, robust work instructions with screenshots and long-winded explanations. You can do that if you really want to, but I don't think you need to. I think just writing the beginning and end of a process, the key steps involved, and most importantly, at the very bottom of that process, write when you know you are done. What do you get as the result of that process? So you can kind of give yourself kind of an idiot check, right? Your idiot light to make sure that you have finished that process properly. This is going to help you avoid missing things and ensure that your process is very skim friendly. It should not take more in total 30 minutes to create a process of something. And as I was saying, that starting at the top or the bottom, I like to start with a really, really simple process at the bottom of what I would call your process org chart, or a really, really big picture process, because both of those are relatively simple to write down. One really simple process I think anyone could start with is just how do you handle incoming inquiries from your website? Most people have a landing or a lead page of some kind. How do you respond to those? Build that process first.
Layla, firstly, thank you so much for being on. I think you've done just a terrific job boiling down something that maybe is a little ethereal or not well understood for people into something that's very pragmatic, easy to understand. And I think many can now really wrap their heads around why this is important and how it can hold them back if they don't take it seriously and put some time towards it.
Absolutely. And it's scary.
Well, again, thanks again, and we really appreciate it. And we enjoy you coming on and sharing everything, and you've just really helped add to the episode. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
We've always done it that way. That saying sends shivers down the spine of many trying to drive change and transformation. It's felt that the act of capturing and documenting our processes is just extra work none of us needs to do. If you want to push someone like that over the edge, just ask them what they are doing to then communicate all of this to people. The problem? This mindset leaves businesses vulnerable and unable to respond. And the last time I checked, the world's never sitting still. Thank you for listening today. I look forward to joining you on the next episode. Until then, I'm Ryan Walter, and remember that solving your biggest business problems begins when you decide to accelerate your approach and achieve more.
At Parrels Advisory, our focus is your business's future. Having the right insight, experience, and perspective makes all the difference when tackling far-reaching issues within your company. We are here to simplify the steps, unlock your potential, and move you forward, making your vision a reality. We've helped startups achieve massive growth, mid-sized businesses navigate digital transformation, and enterprises embrace innovation. Wondering how to jumpstart your business and move it forward? Contact us to discuss your audacious goals during a complimentary consultation.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Accelerate to Achieve. If you're enjoying the podcast, please subscribe and leave a review wherever you listen. Don't forget to share the show with others who want more for their businesses. Got a question, feedback on the program, or interested in being a guest? Simply go to parrels.co/A2A-podcast and send us a message. That's parrels.co/A2A-podcast. To learn more about our work or to book a consultation, visit us at parrels.co/contact. Until next time, remember that solving your biggest business problems begin when you decide to accelerate your approach and achieve more.